strongly believe college is the optimum time to work on building life skills. With that, if you can earn some money on the side, then cherry on top. In today's video, I'm having a conversation with Harish. He runs a YouTube channel called Curious Harish where he posts amazing content. He's a third year student of BITS Pilani, Goa. He has also done a lot of freelancing work during his college years, and he runs a student community called Clinify, which is working actively every day towards providing some additional skills to the students. In today's video, we are going to focus on how he has managed to do all of these things in college, what skills he has learned from doing all of this, and how he has been able to earn some moolah on the side.
Firstly, thank you so much for being on Insider again and welcome to the channel. I'm super excited to have a chat with you. So, you know what? I have been following you on both Instagram and YouTube, and I feel like being a full-time student, you are doing so much, which is so inspiring. So, it would be great if you could just start with a bit of an introduction about yourself and, all the things that you do, just to give some context to the audience.
Right now, I'm a third year undergrad at BITS Pilani Goa campus. I'm doing electronics and communications engineering. I absolutely hate my degree. I don't really like electronics. I'm more of a software person. And on the side, I do a bunch of things like at BITS, we have 0% attendance. So I rarely go for classes, and that leaves me a lot of time to sleep, have my own lunchtime and breakfast, and then also do some things on the side. I run this YouTube channel where I just talk about my college experiences. Since I'm in my third year of college, I have a bit of knowledge about what you go through in your first and second year, and therefore I just give some advice. And then also I used to freelance in my first and second year of college, right from building websites, doing graphic design, running ads for companies. And then I thought, I got this exposure because I had really cool people around me, smart people around me who, encouraged me to do such stuff. But most other students don't have access to this level of, peer group, right? And that's why I was like, all right, I'll just make videos and just democratize this knowledge, right? So I started making some freelancing videos on the side. And we also run a community called Clinify. It's a student community of around 30,000 people on Discord. We organize a bunch of events every single day. Every day people come and practice English and debates. There are people teaching how to use Photoshop, Premiere Pro, how do you build basic websites with JavaScript, things like that. So it's a very healthy community. It's like a digital version of a good college. So it doesn't matter what degree you're doing, doesn't matter what college you come from. If you're part of the community, you'll get access to some of the best founders and experts out there. And before this, I also I tried running a B2B SaaS company called Hulock, which was basically a platform where you can come and build your WhatsApp chatbots. We scaled up to 20 clients, but then we weren't able to, make it big. So we just shut it down.
Wow, that's like quite a lot of things to do in college while, being in third year. Very inspiring. I would love to know a little bit about how you started your freelancing journey. How did it come about? How did you come across the idea? What did you have to do to, build the skills and those kind of things?
So after my 12th grade, I had my vacations. I was really free. So my parents were like, why don't you just join some classes and learn a skill? And that's when I went to a digital marketing course, right? So there was a person from Alibaba teaching how do you run ads, how do you use Photoshop, how do you, do video marketing, things like that. And that's when one of my relatives, he used to do this freelancing gig of designing book covers for authors, right? And he was also doing a full-time job. So he was like, I can't handle it. Would you like to take up this gig and do it? And that's when I got in touch with a bunch of authors in LA, started making book covers for them. And that worked out pretty well. For each book cover, I got paid like $200, which at that time was huge for me. I ended up making I think 5-6 book covers. And then it's not easy, right? When you're doing a service, because you have to exchange hundreds of emails. And I just asked myself, I was making some money in college versus my peers, but I was like, is graphic design something that I want to do for the next 10 years of my life? And the answer was no. So I just stopped doing it and started learning some other skills like, building websites, writing some code, or just understanding how product management works. And then once I learned a particular skill, like say running ads, I used to contact a bunch of my friends and be like one of my friends had this agency where they used to run ads for some healthcare companies. So I was like, can I help you in some way? I know a bit of ads. So that way I was able to put to practice whatever skill I learned.
I mean, I really want to understand what kind of skills, freelancing helped you develop. Because as I can imagine, people who do full-time freelancing, a lot of business development needs to be done. People need to be like good at writing emails and, be professional and deliver on time and those kind of things. I would love to know your perspective.
I think it made me way more confident. Like earlier, I used to be so afraid of cold calling people. Like if I was talking to a stranger over call, I used to like literally shiver. Didn't like that feeling. But then over this course of freelancing and contacting clients, I might have done like over 200 cold calls. So I'm just so used to it. I'm just immune to it. So at one point, I just didn't care what the other person is thinking about me. I think that was super important because when you're like shameless, then you have this unfair advantage over other people, right? That hey, I can do sales versus someone else who's like, oh, what if people, what is he or she on the other side of the phone going to think about me? So I think that was like one of the major learnings, being shameless and just showing up. Writing cold emails, writing cold DMs, all of that. I think those are really critical skills, and that really helped me build like a good network of some smart folks out there.
Any sort of learnings or like mistakes you did and anything that you learned during your freelancing journey? I'm just asking from the perspective of any new student who's coming up and would probably be thinking as freelancing as a learn and earn kind of a mode.
The major mistake that I made was I was thinking just about the money aspect when I got started, right? I wasn't thinking about the value that I'm delivering to the client, especially in B2B. There are only three ways through which you can help a client, right? You either help the client make more money, or you help the client save some money, or you help the client save some time. So if your service doesn't fit any of these three criterias, then it's just like it's not going to work out. It's not good for the long term. I never cared about the value that I was providing or how my service is actually going to impact the business. I think that was a huge learning. So, like, drop off rates were high. People used to take projects, do one time, and then never get back. So, if I were to like redo things again, I think that'll be a major consideration. And also, secondly, it's basic supply demand, right? For example, if you just know how to use Canva, then it's not a core competency. It's not something that you specialize in. Anyone can use Canva. So I think we should like if you're getting started, try finding some niche which has high demand but low supply. I think that will help you earn more, and at the same time, you'll be filled with opportunities.
Yeah, so what I basically heard from you is to sort of learn skills which have slightly higher entry barrier, which sort of differentiates you, and then
Yeah.
link it to the value that you can provide and not just think about the money. And I feel like that's such an important thing for all college students to keep in mind, even when doing things like projects and internships, because a lot of us think that we'll not do an internship because, they're not paying us. But really in college, I think we should like focus on learning and getting that experience. What, according to you, is the earning potential? Because I know it can vary from skill to skill, from if the person is at entry level and a lot of other factors. Like if you have to give like an approximate idea of what the earning potential could range between.
I think most freelancers in India earn anywhere between $20 to $50 an hour. That's like the usual range. And like when you're targeting people, this is a huge mistake that we did. Do not target small and medium businesses. Do not call up your bakery or kirana store next to your house. They won't take your service, right? So if you're in India, there are just two options. The first one is three options, in fact. The first one is target legacy businesses which haven't digitized. People who have deep pockets but they haven't digitized yet. So some huge jewelry store or something like that. Second is target high growth startups, right? So if Cred has raised a round or if some new startup has raised a seed, then try contacting them because they have money to burn. And thirdly, if you want to make it really large, then go global. Target Europe, target US, because that conversion will give you a much higher income. Plus, there's a lot of talent shortage and a lot of price differences.
It's a very new concept for India as well. I feel like a lot of our mentality is a lot like, we'll do it ourselves rather than sort of comparing what value some third person can bring and how much opportunity cost it can help us
Exactly.
save. Hey, so I would love to know a lot more actually about Clinify, what you guys do there, and how did you come up with the idea? How do you see it scaling up in future?
So, Clinify started off as a way for me to capture my audience, right? Because I knew that I don't want to become a full-time YouTuber. I would just upload for a while and then just upload whenever I want to. Like, I don't want to make it a compulsion. And that's when I was like, I'm getting some viewers now. I'm getting some views. I'm getting some subscribers now. But if I just leave them, if I don't capture that audience, then they're just going to go away. Like, after a year, no one's going to care. So I thought, let's capture this audience on my own distribution channel, and that's why I've started forming Telegram groups, WhatsApp groups, Discord servers. That's how it started off. But then what happened was a couple of these guys who were part of the community, they started organizing meetups, events, and they started taking a lot of initiatives and volunteering in. So I made them moderators of the server, and that's when it just blew up. Like they made it so interactive that people preferred this over college. So the moment they came from college, they used to be on a server, hanging out with people, talking to different people, chatting on different channels. We're planning to build this marketplace of cohort-based classes, right? Wherein you take a very private class, like if you specialize in something, you take a very private class for 30 students, and in like a month at a very affordable cost, you teach them the entire skill. For example, Shreyans, right? He's my co-founder. He recently took a cohort for finance. Like he has interned at Grow, he has interned at WorldQuant. He's like one of the best finance folks out there. So he'll take 30 students in, and over a course of like say 4 weeks, he'll teach them as much finance as he knows. So this way, it just accelerates the learning journey. You buy Udemy courses, you just forget about them. They have a 4% completion rate. Nobody likes to learn from YouTube. It's not interactive enough. So when you give them a live platform like Zoom to learn, along with peer-to-peer interaction, it just increases the learning outcome. So that's the product side of it.
So what is your plan to sort of scale it up?
I mean, we would love to scale it up. Right now, that's what we're trying to do. Get as many instructors as possible. And we have some internal revenue targets. So if it hits those, then yeah, it's good enough. We might go with it. But you never know. Startups are very unpredictable. So
of course. But it's always good to have like a vision, right? That's where you are going to work towards. What have been your learnings, and what have you developed any specific skills or anything else from this whole journey of Clinify?
I think when we started off, we had no clue about what product to build, right? We never thought of this marketplace of cohort-based classes. In fact, Udemy's co-founder, Gagan Biani, his new startup, he quit Udemy. I mean, he's just in the board. His new startup is a marketplace of cohort-based classes. Is the exact idea that we have. So there is demand for that. Even Unacademy launched a product called Graphy, which is planning to do something similar. We would have never come to this conclusion that, hey, this has demand. If we did not ask the audience. So what we did was we built the community, we gave them a bunch of events, asked them, what do you want? And then this is what most of them said, right? This is what we could conclude from the community interaction. So I would say when you, like in most cases, what happens is people build a product and then just try to sell it. But then they don't have enough distribution. So in my case, what I learned was every time you launch, I mean, even before you launch a product, could be anything, could be even a B2B SaaS product. Look for an audience, ask them what they want, and then start building, the mock-ups and the prototypes.
So I really want to understand from you how you are able to manage your courses as well as all the other things that you do, and if you would have any time management suggestions for the current students.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the right person to ask about time management. I don't use any fancy tools. I'm very unorganized. I don't have a fixed waking up time. I just wake up at random hours. But one thing is just have some goals that you want to accomplish throughout the day, and then do it whenever you get time. Like on my Google Calendar, I just put out some goals like learn to code for 30 minutes, read for 30 minutes, or maybe something like I have a meeting with Swami at this time. I have a meeting with Mridul at 2 p.m. Use Google Calendar for that purpose. I think one advantage that I have is I'm not obligated to go for classes, so I can bunk as many classes as I want to, which is not good because that impacts my score. But yeah, I memean, it's a compromise. So when you have to do like so many extracurriculars, it does hamper your academics. In my first year, I was totally focused on academics. I ended up getting great marks, but I wasn't happy at all. I was like, damn, this is not the Harish I know of. So, but then later on, it's like inversely proportional. Like, I started going down, but my happiness level went up. I started doing things that I actually liked, and I'm happy with it. I even lost my scholarship, but it's fine. I think happiness compensated for that.
But hey, you also learned a lot of things like good life
Yeah.
skills, which I think happiness and good life skills, it's a good compromise, I would say.
Yeah, like at this point, I just want to somehow get my college degree so that I have a backup in case, like, I'm applying for jobs and stuff. Nothing else. I don't want to become like the class topper. I'm really happy if I'm just the average kid out there.
Oh, yeah. One thing that I did want to ask you was what are your opinions on the other learn and earn kind of opportunities? For example, projects, internships, and you are in third year. So, what would your advice be?
Try out freelancing, try out internships. You have to do that. They'll teach you way more than what college subjects teach you. In fact, internships, like when you're getting an internship at a good startup, just go for it. Doesn't matter if you're a content writer, because once you're in the startup, like you can easily switch roles, so it's not an issue. Like, and also consider startups. Like, consider interning at startups. Don't think like, hey, Microsoft, Amazon is the only way to go. I feel the learning curve at good startups that are heavily funded and are growing at a very fast pace is much higher. So yeah, that, like, a lot of people have this, especially Amazon, right? Like, I meet so many people every single day. They're like, "Bhaiya, Amazon kaise jaate hai?" I'm like, dude, it's fine. It's like there's hundreds of other companies out there. Try out them. So don't be narrow-minded. Be on sites like TechCrunch, Product Hunt. Expose yourself. Be on Twitter. Expose yourself to the amount of opportunities out there. And yeah, so that would be
Yeah.
my suggestion.
We underestimate the kind of experience, like all round experience that startups can bring, probably. My experience, because I have always worked in like big companies. So I see that, in bigger companies or when you work for clients in the West, a lot of the processes are very set. So you don't have to, you are in an autopilot mode where you are just doing things which you have to do. But for example, when you are starting in smaller places where you really have to just figure things out and put a lot of structure to ambiguous situations, that's where a lot of learning comes from. Really interesting discussion. It was such a power packed chat. And I don't have any experience in freelancing or starting a startup in college. I mean, it was good to see
True.
sort of how students these days are thinking. That was a good insight.
Thanks a ton for having me, Sami.